Thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you spending your valuable time this morning with us, with Steph and I. So today we're talking about optimization, ad optimization, and three underutilized ways to drive ad efficiency in 2025 and beyond as well. For those who weren't part of our previous webinar about a month ago, we spoke around media mix modeling, multi-touch attribution, and incrementality, and how we at XPON sort of see those three measurement strategies as kind of the intersection of a unified measurement playbook that we call it, and basically the way to measure performance now and going forward. Now we're looking at, I guess, optimizing that performance. We've covered measurement. Now we're looking at optimization. So Steph's kindly joined us from our ad tech team. She's a GMP lead here at XPON. And Steph's going to talk through three strategies that her and her team are really seeing have the biggest bang for buck with our clients and others in the industry. And really where we see, I guess, the biggest value and the biggest opportunity for advertisers and agencies to optimize their ad spend and their strategies for the rest of the year. So, Steph, I might get you to just do a quick introduction, and then I'll jump into the first piece of content.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Tim said, my name is Steph. I am the GMP lead here at XPON Technologies. I've been working here for probably 4.5 to 5 years, helping some of our large agency and enterprise clients tackle problems such as budget management, media spend efficiency, and some of the more technical aspects of advertising in a privacy-first world. So I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Thank you, Steph. Awesome introduction. And for those who don't know me, I run our marketing here at XPON. I usually jump on these webinars and just help facilitate and do some of the intros before the smarter people get on, and then actually talk through some of the more technical content. So nice to see you all today. Awesome. Steph, we just jump into it. Great. So the efficiency imperative. Most of you, I imagine, are probably feeling the increase in competition, the increase in, I guess, ad expensiveness in your own activities and in your own brands. I just wanted to, I guess, set the scene a little bit before Steph jumped into some of the optimization strategies with just some really good data that's recently been released from the IAB Australia. For those here that are from New Zealand, sorry, I don't have the New Zealand data specifically up on screen, but I think that the trends are very similar in both markets. What the IAB has recently released is basically the year-on-year comparison, and then also the 5 to 6 year look back on internet advertising spend across different channels and as a whole within the market. And there's some really good insights that we can glean from just looking at this data. And I think it definitely showcases some of what Steph's feeling and her team are feeling, and the brands and the agencies that we work with are feeling as well. So as we all probably have felt, the actual total expenditure has definitely grown significantly year on year. So yeah, great. Thanks, Steph. Jumping to this slide. So this shows a nice 6-year trend or 7-year trend here, showcasing the total expenditure within the market. So this is across all internet advertising channels. We see, video, display, and search taking up a good chunk of that, with video growing specifically 22% in the last financial year, which is quite significant. And I don't think connected TV is bundled into that, but connected TV as well has seen a massive increase in the last financial year. But obviously, there's a very clear trend here, right? There's a massive increase in total expenditure in online advertising every year, with I think a average, compound annual growth rate of 11.3%, which is astounding, right? But I guess the insight to glean from that is not only the expenditure growing up, that just means more budgets, more competition, which inevitably means, higher CPMs, more competition in the actual bidding space, which us as those advertisers or performance specialists on the tools then have to try, work around and try and find ways to then bring down these average costs and try and beat the competition in the most effective and cost efficient way possible. So I think it's just important to set the scene that, there's obviously massive growing expenditure in the market, costs are growing, Hopefully these three strategies you aren't using yet. So that means there's a ton of opportunity for you to dive in, leverage these strategies, and then drive some new efficiencies into your campaigns and your ad strategies. I'll throw to you, Steph. I'll let you talk through the three key strategies now.
Thanks, Tim. So, given these kind of ongoing challenges, as Tim was talking about, not only the rise in overall competition and investment in internet advertising, but also the rise in costs that we see alongside that. What I want to do today is take you through three kind of key pillars that we at XPON identify as the best ways to really optimize your existing budget and your existing spend for performance and outcomes for your agency or for your business. So the three main topics that I'm going to touch on today, firstly, is going to be first-party audience targeting and exclusion. So really unlocking all of the capabilities hidden within your own existing pool of data. We'll take a look at bidding to value. You may also hear me refer to it as VBB, just a prior warning before we get to that, which is shifting from conversion volume to actual profitability for your business. And the last one we're going to touch on is around reach and frequency controls. This is a really foundational tool that a lot of people we find are not utilizing to its fullest potential to save them money within their advertising efforts. So that's a really important one that I'm going to touch on at the end. And then when I'm finished with my rambling, we'll open up for you guys to ask any questions, and hopefully I can help put you guys in the right direction. So starting off with our first party audiences, this is probably one of the easiest ways that we find for marketers to be able to optimize their spend. I'm sure all of you have heard like no end of discussions around first party data to date, but there's a really good reason for that. So we here at XPON are huge advocates for combining your business owned data and knowledge with AI and ML tools. A lot of times these tools have been built on years of experience and years of global data, particularly in the case of the Google platforms that we specialize in. And so we really find that in most cases, human-assisted AI, as opposed to AI-assisted humans, which is what most of us hope to be if we're not already. But human-assisted AI is a massive combination and a key to success. So what we find is when you leverage your first-party data with Google's AI, you get significant improvements in your key performance metrics, and it helps you to better achieve your business-specific goals. Fortunately, there's been a lot of expansion in this space over the last few years, and our tools now work a lot greater than just a simple one-to-one upload and targeting. It actually enables our advertisers to leverage your first-party data with some of those AI and machine learning capabilities to improve things like your acquisition signals, to improve your predictive capabilities, and inevitably to drive demand for your business. So the value that first-party data provides to our advertisers, it comes in a variety of different forms, depending on your campaign strategy, the user journey, and also your data maturity. So this can be something as simple as retargeting tactics, like serving messages to your website visitors or recently inactive customers, or it could be finding niche audience segments to improve your overall message efficacy and spend efficiency, which obviously is why we're here today. So some of those approaches could be things like excluding your existing customers, so really saving you money on targeting known users or by not targeting the known users. Or it could be things like modeling to develop audiences of users who are most likely to purchase from your business or who have a higher predicted purchase value. Some of the most digitally mature approaches that we see combine not only our first-party audiences, but it kind of couples those with connected bidding strategies, which is the second section that I'll touch on today. But we find really that these two pieces go hand in hand really well. As an example, if we are in the awareness stage, A simple tactic is going to be excluding your existing customers from your acquisition campaigns. This prevents you from wasting your budget on a bunch of people who have already converted. And it's a really foundational step that we think every business should be taking. So if that's not something that you're currently doing, very quick, easy win to help save you a little bit of your media investment. If we move down into like the consideration and conversion phases, you can get a little bit more advanced. You can create some high value audiences for expansion by using things like your top customers as a seed list for optimized targeting or for similar audiences through demand gen. The great news is that when it comes to first party audiences or like specifically customer match audiences, the numbers speak for themselves, which is great. What we find essentially is enabling your first party audiences drives incremental performance for any campaigns that you already have in market. So you don't have to go and build everything from the ground up. You can optimize your existing activity simply by adding in your first party data that hopefully we already have on hand. We see when you apply custom match lists to bidding, smart bidding campaigns, so campaigns of smart bidding, you see an average of 5.3% uplift in conversions. But even better than that, we actually see a 20% increase in conversions per dollar spent when you use this approach. So that is a significant improvement in your efficiency. What I wanted to do today to help kind of get you started with best utilizing your first party audiences to really nail some of this spend efficiency is I've included a couple of use cases that you can essentially get started with. So the first one, foundational but incredibly important, as I mentioned, is the exclusion of your existing customers, preventing you from wasting your budget on people who have already converted. Now, what I will say when it comes to excluding your existing customers is it's really important as an agency to work with your customers or as a business to discuss internally and get a really clear view of what defines an existing customer. This is going to vary depending on your business, depending on your marketing lifecycle, and it's really important as well to consider if and when those customers should be re-engaged. So some things to kind of help you think about what an existing customer might be for you. It could be as simple as somebody who has signed up or purchased from your business. If you are a B2B enterprise, it could be somebody with an active license if you're in SaaS. If you are B2C, it could be someone specifically who's purchased in the last 90 days. You may work out that your definition of an existing customer, they tend to return within that time frame. So if they are outside of that, it might be a good time to re-engage them. Alternatively, if you're in something like FMCG, there's a lot quicker turnaround with those. So their definition or your definition of an existing customer would be extremely different compared to, say, a B2B advertiser. So I always recommend going through and really defining what an existing customer means to you. And defining also, is that the same for your entire business? Is it different for different lines of your business? The power of excluding your existing customers doesn't just come from the saving in spend, but it also comes from leveraging your business knowledge to really nail and understand who an existing customer is to make sure that you are including or excluding the right people at the right time. Secondly, one of the many traps that we see people fall into when it comes to utilizing first-party audiences for expansion specifically, similar to the definition for your existing customers, it comes down to the segmentation of who your high-value audiences or who your high-value customers are. The real value as well for expansion tactics comes from not just a generic single customer audience, but really from that segmentation into what is high value, what is of importance. Essentially, not all of your customers are creative equal. You'll have some customers who are high spenders, who are repeat purchasers. You'll have some who have been with you for a really long time. They could be your most valuable customers, and if so, they should be the foundation for your expansion tactics. So by segmenting your data, you can create a seed list of those high value customers and then leverage Google's AI tools like optimized targeting or similar audiences currently for using demand gen to help find you new users who have similar characteristics or similar actions to your best customers, not just to all customers. We find that this is a little bit more effective of a strategy rather than telling, your targeting algorithms to find more customers. You're providing them with super targeted, high quality value seed lists, and you're giving it a much more intelligent goal, essentially, to optimize towards. Some little thinking points for you around what dictates a high value audience. You could take a look, is this someone who is based off of a RFM, a recency frequency monetization model? Are they people who have purchased high value cart items? Are they people who do lots of purchases? Are they somebody who has purchased within a specific time frame? Really work out what that value means to you. Is it lifetime value? Or is it something like their probability to purchase or propensity to purchase? So this last kind of use case that I'll talk you through is our purchase probability use case. So this approach includes taking your first party data and actually applying a layer of intelligence to it. When I say intelligence, I mean AI intelligence, not just you got to be smart to do it. But instead of just targeting your past customers, we're essentially going to use your data to predict who your future customers might be. So you can use advanced data platforms to build custom models for things like predicted lifetime value or their propensity to buy. So think of it as a way to kind of score your users based on how likely they are to become a valuable customer. It's not just about someone who's bought something, but who is most likely to buy again and who is most likely to spend more with us in the future. Once you have these models, you can easily activate them across pretty much all of your media channels. It doesn't just have to be Google. This means that you can find more people exactly like your highest value customers on platforms like Meta, LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, wherever it is that you're advertising today. Specifically in the context of Google Marketing Platform, because that's obviously where our expertise lie, by combining your own data with Google's AI, you are essentially providing the targeting algorithm with a much smarter goal to optimize towards. Instead of just driving any conversion, it's now focused on finding the most valuable conversions, and it's a crucial shift that leads to a much more efficient use of your ad spend. So you've gathered all your first party data, you've built your audiences. Now you need to develop a plan essentially to prove that they're working and prove the value of these audiences, right? Now, depending on where you are in your first party audience journey, you might find yourself starting further down this roadmap. However, to best support our customers in realizing and demonstrating the value of custom match audiences back to their businesses, we generally recommend a phased approach. So the key is really to set up a controlled experiment where you can isolate the impact of your first party audiences and be able to definitively say that this strategy is working. So our phased approach usually includes one, testing audience uplift. So this is a comparison against essentially non-audience targeting against audience targeting. So you can kind of demonstrate what the incremental conversions are that you are achieving on top of what you would have achieved regardless of audience targeting. From there, we move into an audience comparison. So you would apply essentially different first-party audiences to line items, use testing infrastructure and reports to see which one of those performs better. So as an example, you might do a seed list audience against one of your predictive or your modeled audiences. From there, you can take a look at things like your conversion rate, your CPA, or your ROAS, return on ad spend, to see which of these is performing better for your business objectives specifically. And then once you've kind of narrowed down which of these audiences is your top performer, or it's giving you the best return for your ad spend, it's helping you to optimize that media investment the most, what we move into then is a message comparison. So here we will apply multiple creatives to the same targeting to help us understand what really resonates most with our most valuable audiences. So for example, we might show a value focused message to a high lifetime value audience, or we might serve a promotional message to one of our new acquisition audiences, as an example. Really just kind of defining not only how do our audiences behave and who gives us the best bang for the buck, but what is going to entice them the most to come back to our business and spend more money. Remember that these experiments, when you set them up, they should have constants and then essentially one variable to make sure that you can really understand and present back the value of these audiences. The goal essentially is to move beyond the old spray and pray approach and move into a world where we're using first-party data and making data-driven decisions about our audiences. And we find that these types of experiments and plans are the best way to get us there. Now, a great way to simplify your approach for first-party audiences through custom match is using a composable data platform. If you haven't heard of these before, essentially it's a toolbox that allows you to, or enables you to easily connect, model, and then activate your audiences. So these platforms enable you to build those advanced models that we've spoken about, lifetime value, propensity to buy, pretty quickly and quite easily as well, I will say. Composable data platforms like Wondrous, which is the one that we have on screen at the moment, they also enable our advertisers or our agencies to seamlessly activate the exact same audiences across your advertising platforms, which means that you can effectively test your first-party audiences not just in the Google platforms, but also across your priority social channels like Meta and LinkedIn. We at XPON, we have a lot of experience helping our clients implement these types of solutions, and we've seen some incredible results from that. This is our proof in the pudding, essentially, of using first-party audiences to optimize and improve your budget efficiency. So the first example I have here is a global retail brand that we work with. They saw an incredible 114% reduction in their CPC, their cost per click, and a massive 786% increase in their click-through rate, which is just an awesome improvement in spend efficiency. In this scenario, essentially, our retail customer leveraged their customer data, first-party audiences, in DV360 and optimized performance across their product-based campaigns. So that comes back to being that really detailed, segmented audiences in line with what your intended outcomes are. We essentially had an audience segment with purchase histories of 2 to 5 products across the specific product range, and having that really targeted audiences with messages helped us to achieve those results. The second example is for one of Australia's leading superannuation funds. Stats are on the screen. I probably don't need to read those to you, but this is just a really good demonstration that even in a restricted and super well policied vertical like finance, our customers are still able to leverage their first-party data via custom match in a privacy-safe way while realizing a significant uplift in their media performance. So some really awesome results that we've seen from this approach specifically, which is awesome. The second strategy that I want to talk to you about today is bidding to value, or BVP, as I've mentioned. As I stated earlier, we see a lot of value in the human-assisted AI, and that essentially is what bidding to value is. In very, very simple terms, it's about shifting mindset from just optimizing towards conversions to optimizing towards valuable conversions. It goes beyond a traditional CPA type bidding strategy, which treats all conversions as equal towards a method where you are telling the system that actually all conversions aren't equal. Some people are just going to be more valuable to us. I like to compare this a little bit to like having a personal shopper. So a traditional shopper, you'll give them a list, they'll just go out and buy anything that matches what's on your little shopping list. A personal shopper, someone who actually understands you and what you value, they might prioritize buying the highest quality, most valuable items for you, as opposed to just anything on that list. And that's essentially what bidding to value does. It prioritizes what's important to you based off of the signals and the information that you give. In the context of, why we're here today, and the reason we're talking about bidding to value is because of how it drives that incremental performance and more value from your media budgets. But the value of VBB doesn't stop there. It's also a great way to optimize towards the objectives and KPIs that your business actually cares about, which can sometimes get a little bit lost as we're going through life. It's also a great way of aligning your bidding optimization across different channels and of maintaining your optimization capabilities in a privacy-first world post third-party cookie deprecation, once that eventually sets in. So this is a bit of a visual representation of the flexibility of value-based bidding. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You can tailor it to your really specific business goals. So coming back to the core principles of like our first-party audience section that we spoke about before, it really comes to, what does value mean to you? What is a valuable customer to you? For a retailer, as an example, value might be about increasing profit as opposed to revenue. For a SaaS company, it could be about driving people to higher value product tiers as opposed to the free trial subscriptions. For services, it could be about improving customer loyalty. So no matter what type of business you are, where you are in your journey, there is a VBB approach for you and for what your business values, which is one of my favorite things about it, is just how composable it is. With VBB, it's not so much about flipping a switch and turning it on. You do need to understand, obviously, your business objectives, your campaign objectives, and then really define the data points that best represents that value. As you can kind of see, there's different layers of complexity when it comes to value-based bidding, depending on your business strategy, internal alignment on those definitions, and access to your data. You can start as simply or as advanced as you need. Many of our customers start with the more simple approaches, like the assigned values or the weighted conversions, and they work their way up over time to things like value-based, modeling-based, even some attention-based activity for video, as an example. With the low complexities, we can kind of start with things like standard conversion values in the platform. That's going to inform your bidding algorithms, what actions are most valuable for your end KPI or outcome. For an e-commerce, this could be revenue. Very, very simple. Moving into like the mid-range of complexity, this is kind of when you might be adding in or bringing in data from other systems. It might be including offline conversion data from your composable data platform to factor in conversions that happen in a physical store or over the phone. I know a lot of businesses currently have extended sales processes that end in phone sales or phone conversions. So that's a really important one. And then if you want to get super tricky and do something a bit more complex, this is where we can get into the world of like predictive modeling. You can use your, again, first-party data to create a predicted lifetime value score, as an example. That's a really valuable tool or a really valuable signal to pass back to Google, because it allows the system to bid higher for a customer who is likely to spend a lot of money with you over their entire relationship, not just that first purchase. What I will say when it comes to VBB is just start somewhere. Even a simple value-based strategy is better than nothing. And you can always get more sophisticated over time. And if it sounds a bit tricky, let me know, because we can help. When it comes to BBB, you can pass any data, essentially, that represents a valuable outcome to your business. These are some examples of the type of data that you can send. It's not necessarily limited to this, but we find this is a good representation of most use cases, and it gives a good idea in terms of how much data maturity you need to have and how much time you need to have at your disposal to actually approach one of these implementations as well. It might be that you are super keen on doing some lifetime value bidding, but you might need to start with some revenue to begin with and just prove that value back to your business to get a little bit of leeway to then go and do your lifetime value. But essentially anything that you need to inform a bidding strategy of what is value, there's a way to get it to the platforms, whether, as I said, simple implementation in platform conversion values or something a little bit more advanced where we're using your CDPs to push that information across. The beauty of value-based bidding is that you're not limited anymore to a simple conversion. You're actually able to align your advertising spend with actual profitability of your business. And of course, I have some examples of customers that we've supported in achieving exactly this. So we've worked with a lot of our customers, I will say, on value-based bidding. What I do note with these examples specifically is there were definitely some foundational data strategies that we had to put in place first to make this a reality. So what I generally recommend to people who are looking for a place to start, just take a look at what you've got. You probably have more data and information at your fingertips than what you realize. And if you just kind of sit down, take a look at what you have at your disposal, you'll usually find a pretty easy entry point into value-based bidding. And then again, get more serious over time, do things a little bit more tricky and fun. But the first example I want to share with you is value-based bidding from one of Australia's leading publishers. The goal here essentially was to profitably acquire new subscribers through their paid search campaigns. Now, historically, this was a channel that didn't deliver high volumes of conversions, and so it was really important that we were able to maximize the return for our spend and really optimize the money that we were investing there. In this case, we had varying subscription models that fed into how effective or how profitable those campaigns were. So to address this, we used value-based bidding to optimize towards the actual subscription value in Search Ads 360, which resulted in that 92% ROAS year on year, which is a pretty significant improvement and efficiency for that media spend. The second example is that same Australian superannuation fund. This, I think, is a really great example of where business and industry challenges can be addressed through value-based bidding. So for this customer, there's a significant delay between acquiring a new customer and then realizing the value of that new customer. This creates, a bit of difficulty in making actual data-driven decisions when the data flow is segmented and delayed. So in this case, we used BBB using the conversion value approach for their display activity, and essentially we're able to acquire new customers at 20% less cost, which is absolutely fantastic. So with BBB, essentially, what we find is when you are able to align your bidding strategies with your actual business value, you don't just get more conversions, but you actually get better, more profitable conversions at a lower cost. This is essentially, to me, proof that bidding to value is a critical part of optimizing and not overspending. Now, the final strategy that I want to take you through today is one that is pretty fundamental, but frequently overlooked. And this is essentially how often people see your ads. For customers and people I talk to that are new to the concept of frequency, I usually start by asking them one question, which is, have you ever felt like you've seen the same ad one too many times? Usually the answer is yes. That feeling is what we refer to as ad fatigue. It's actually quite a large problem in our industry, as anyone who has spent any time on, I think, any social media app will tell you. Sometimes you just want to close that whole thing down so you stop seeing the same ad, but maybe that's me. But frequency management in simple terms is about setting a cap on the number of times a user sees a specific ad or set of ads within a determined time frame. Essentially the opposite of overserving, and it's there to reduce that ad fatigue. Frequency management itself kind of has three main outcomes: reducing that ad fatigue, reducing wasted spend. So every time essentially you show your ad to somebody who has seen it too many times already and isn't going to convert, that's wasted money. So frequency capping really helps to make sure that you spend your budget more efficiently by reaching new, unique users instead of serving to the same small group of people. And finally, it ensures brand safety. So it kind of prevents any brands from appearing a little bit desperate, maybe annoying. It is very much a core concept to advertising, but with the right technology, you can take frequency management to a whole new level. So one of the biggest challenges when it comes to frequency management is media consolidation. In a siloed approach, you might have separate campaigns running on different platforms. You might have YouTube, you might have a third-party ad network, you might be running display through Google Ads, you might have direct deals with publishers, and so on. And essentially this creates complications for advertisers where a single user might be exposed to your ad on YouTube. They might see it on a news website through a different ad network. They might see it on a mobile app as they're streaming some TV. And even though you might have individual frequency caps on each of those platforms, that single user could see your ad 3 times that cap in a single day or within a period, which is a huge waste of money. And it's a fast track to ad fatigue that we spoke about before. So media consolidation through a enterprise platform like DV360 enables our advertisers to set a single unified frequency cap for your entire campaign, even across different inventory types, different buying methods, whether that is guaranteed, non-guaranteed, open auction. By consolidating your media, you get a much better control over that frequency and much better reach as well for the same investment. So powerful advantage for you is that you're not just siloing your campaigns that are going to continually target the same people over and over again. You can actually take some of that money and reinvest it in acquiring new users and new customers. The tangible benefit of this, essentially, there was a study by Nielsen that evaluated consolidated buying through DV360 versus fragmented buying with separate tools. As you can see, stats on the screen, this study found that a consolidated approach actually got us 11% greater reach by buying through one platform instead of distributed. So if you are currently buying through a distributed network, through a portfolio of a bunch of different vendors and tools, you could potentially be wasting media spend and also potentially be annoying people with the repeated messaging. So consolidating your buying in a platform like DV360 helps you to control that frequency and drive much better reach for the same investment, ultimately leading essentially to better media outcomes. This is an illustration of the example that I outlined before. On the left, we have a traditional or a siloed approach where you can see we're managing campaigns on multiple platforms. Each of these might have a frequency cap of 3, but because none of these things talk to each other, our user has now seen the same ad 9 times across 3 different platforms. Again, wasted spend, ad fatigue. We're paying to show the same ad to the same person over and over again, where we could be investing that budget in reaching a new potential customer. So on the right-hand side, we have what is a unified approach through DV360. In this implementation, you can see a single campaign level frequency cap of that 3 exposures, which means no matter which of those publishers, whether it's YouTube, Nine, the Australian, that the user has come through, we still only serve them ads 3 times and then never again. In theory. There are limitations. I won't go into that, too technical. But the result essentially is that your budget is then spent far more efficiently. You get to reach more unique users or unique people instead of overserving to that few. We've helped a number of our clients optimize their media spend through frequency management specifically, including one of our global B2B customers. They were able to improve their reach by 18% through DV360's frequency management tool. So definitely very powerful when it's done right. Outside of that, generally YouTube users see a 12% increase in unique reach, which is a 5% reach per dollar increase for advertisers. I'm very aware I've only got a couple of minutes left, so I apologize. I've only got a couple of slides left to go. I'll try and get through it. But essentially, when you take this approach in DV360, not only do you get that efficiency and that gain, but you also get the data to prove that back to your business, which is absolutely fantastic. So this report shows 2 super important metrics. First is the added impression reach from your frequency cap. So this shows you how many additional unique users were reached by your campaign specifically because you're using frequency capping. In this case, 30,000 extra people just by using frequency caps. That's pretty dang good. The other one is the total reach, which is a metric that most advertisers are pretty familiar with. This is the total number of deduplicated users reached by your campaign. So this report essentially allows you to definitively show that you are not overserving and reaching the same people, but you are actively reaching a new audience and that you are being a lot more effective with your media investment. The how on this is measured, particularly as we move into that more privacy first world. In DV360, it's a combination between deterministic measurement and modeled data. Deterministic measurement, for anyone who's not sure what that means, is essentially measurement where we have user signals available. So this is things like people who are logged in on devices and cross devices, versus modeled measurement, which is for traffic where we might have limited access to user signals. So when someone is signed out and they don't have a third-party cookie, as an example. So the benefit as well of using DV360 for your frequency management is that they as a product are committed to user privacy while still providing advertisers with the tools that we need to manage privacy manage frequency in a privacy safe way. This is a quick example of how it works within the platform. We have 3 different levels of frequency management. So broadest at the top within your campaign level frequency, you can set a cap across all of your insertion orders and line items, followed by your insertion order level where you can kind of get a little bit more niche on how you want those impressions to be broken down, particularly if you have similar or cross pollinated audiences running. And then obviously your line item level, we can get really specific around the tactics and the messages that you want people to see, how often and when. Okay, my apologies. Hope that all made sense. Tim,
Smashed it, Steph. Thank you. We're on time now, so thank you everyone. Pretty well everyone's stuck around, so we might just take a couple of minutes extra to answer the questions that came through. If you have to drop, no problem. This will all be shared with you on demand as well, so you can watch the recording if you want to catch those questions. Just before we jump into the 2 questions that we did receive, did want to call out, there's a couple of playbooks that Steph's team have put together around actual value-based bidding implementation and frequency management implementation, which we'll be sharing with everyone who's on the call and who registered for the webinar. It's definitely Google-centric in terms of the technology that we talk about within the playbooks, given that's what XPON really works within, and we think it's definitely the best and most capable enterprise ad tech platform out there. But I think still the fundamental strategies and how to think about and how to apply VBB and reach and frequency management are still sort of really deeply understood and explained within those playbooks as well. So I think it's going to be valuable for anyone, regardless of whatever tech you're using. So to jump to the questions, we received two. So the first one came from Jason. What are the best practices for getting first-party data into platforms like Google Ads? I know you touched on Wonderous and composable CDPs, but anything else broadly around that question?
Yeah, I will say in terms of best practice, a CDP is realistically your best way to go. They tend to be the most adherent to any of the privacy regulations. They usually have safeguards in place to make sure that the right data is getting to the right place. And they give you the tools to do that really specific segmentation that you realistically need to get the most value out of those first party audiences. So I would say that's best practice approach.
And probably the automation, right, would be a key part of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having the ability to have, scheduled syncs between where your data lives currently and then where you want it to go and activate. So you're not managing lists and constantly exporting, importing. I think that's probably a major thing to mention there as well. Yeah. And then Ben with the second question. So does your tool, I imagine he's probably talking about Wonderous actually, when he says this, does your tool enable inclusion lists or exclusion lists by IP address, i.e. the office's IP address, not the domain, for targeting specific companies?
For targeting specific companies, or okay, I'll touch on that.
Instead of a user ID, using the IP as a company-based ID.
Yeah, interesting. Look, I'm going to go ahead and say no for that one. Specifically for Google Marketing Platform, because of the importance that they place on privacy, IP addresses is generally something that is not shared in any way, shape, or form, and it's not used for any type of targeting. What I will say is there are some third-party tools that do IP exclusions for things like bot traffic and that sort of stuff as well. So not sure if that 100% answers your question, but that's probably as close as I've got.
Awesome. If you need more clarity or a deeper answer on that, Ben, please feel free to reach out to Steph or I, and we'll make sure we get some more clarity around that one. Otherwise, thank you everyone for joining. We're a few minutes over, but I appreciate you all staying on. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to drop Steph or myself a LinkedIn message, an email, whatnot, and we'll share through those resources very soon. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Steph.